Big Bad Toy Store has apparently been processing orders for the North American distribution for some of the Hiya Toys Godzilla figures. Check them out at the link in the description.
Dragon Ball, horror, kaiju, and more. Steven's Toy Reviews.
Hey collectors, it's going to be Steven here, and we're going to round out the year with another Hiya Toys Godzilla figure review. Today we're going to be taking a look at the exquisite basic King Ghidorah 2019. This is going to be a challenger to the throne because now we have the essential cast to Godzilla, King of the Monsters in all of their forms, and this is starting to hit stores now. US distribution will come sooner than later, thankfully, and everyone's going to get to enjoy the not giant golden dragon, which is awesome. So now we have a chance at a more so accurate King Ghidorah figure with more paint applications than the competition. Is this one going to be worth purchasing and possibly replacing what you may already have, getting a King Ghidorah figure from the Monsterverse for the first time, or should you skip this one entirely? Let's take a look to see whether or not it's going to be worth adding into your collection. I do want to note right off the top that there have been some users, particularly outside of the United States, who did make purchases of this from select retailers who were able to reach out, apparently, according to them, allegedly in Minecraft, to Hiya directly, and they were able to get replacement head parts. Most notably, that was because of severe warping issues with the horns, issues with an overbite or something else, and apparently they were able to get replacement parts sent to them. I don't know anything else other than that. That is a little bit disappointing because that indicates that there may have been an issue where replacement parts were already able to be obtained, and it's a little bit of a bummer that that's going to be the case because there have been some issues where Ghidorah doesn't necessarily resemble as much of Ghidorah as so much as he resembles a goat for the particular heads. But nevertheless, I do think for my particular unit, I do have a rather nice sample here, and I think Ghidorah looks good. And more so specifically, when we take a look at the heads, we're going to go ahead and look at the middle one the way I normally present my reviews from all three sides that I normally do, and then the left one, the left side, the right one, the right side. I think all of them look great, and from the head-on shot, it's very clear you can do small eyes looking perfectly aligned. Ghidorah does look great overall in terms of paint applications. However, you may note that throughout there are a couple of minor scrapes here or there, and I will say that some things like the spikes that are found on Ghidorah, they do have some nice paint applications to them, and I think that is the general approach that Ghidorah should have. There's some nice dry brushing that is found on the figure, most notably that sort of white tan, not really the bone color that is found on the necks all the way down into the abdomen, but it is so light on the dry brushing that it's almost as if it's not even there entirely on some of like the spikes. So it's good to see that they did take the dry brushing idea to heart, but they really didn't flesh it out in some spots, and it's almost like it's not even there. I really do hope that makes sense. And that's really a disappointment when we take a look at some of the things like the wings, which, they're to die for, because if you look at them, we can see that they really intricately painted the veins, and we do have some spots which have nice dark brown dry brushing and airbrushing. The thing just overall looks fantastic. I will say in terms of the sculpted detail, as you have clearly seen, the teeth are a little too thick and not necessarily as much fangs as Ghidorah should have. But nevertheless, I think this figure does look fantastic, albeit a little bit too big in the wings department. I think they should be a bit smaller, personal preference. But yeah, if you want an accurate Monsterverse King Ghidorah, then congratulations. Not only does this look very accurate, but the attention to detail is amazing. All right, you ready to see how this big old bad dragon moves? Because this is a big boss for Godzilla. And of course, we got to see if he can throw down. So, something interesting here is it's pretty great, but beware of scraping and damage and loose joints. Those are going to be the two big issues. So, when you take Ghidorah out of the box, something I do want to make mention, they do use those little plastic tie-down things. It's got the two things that like get punctured through the plastic clamshell. You're going to think, oh, that's a real pain, because like even the tails, which those are separate in the box, on the stumps there, they indicate left and right. It's actually going to be left and right. They're really, really close to the tail. The plastic, the protective plastic, you can actually pull that up and use your scissors or your knife to cut underneath the plastic. Kudos to you, Hiya. All right, so you're going to want to be careful there. So when you have Ghidorah up and out of the box, the mouth will probably be closed because they're on hinges, right? So as you can see, oh, the tongue. Yeah, tongue is going to be on a hinge. So yeah, so don't worry, you can move the tongue. It is just stuck. So do keep that in mind. Now with the tail, I do want to make mention of this. Yeah, it is going to be a pain, a royal pain to get that attached. I have seen some folks in the community mention that they had to like get a Dremel and make the hole bigger. Don't do that. The tail is actually engineered really, really well. Notice that I did not mention stuff pops off because the hole is so small that when it pops onto the ball joint, like even when it was heated, I dangled it by its tail. Nothing popped off. So you're really going to have to heat it. I think it took me like 5 minutes of constant blow dryer to get it working and popped it on. So as you saw, jaw opens and closes on a hinge and the tongue is going to be on a hinge as well. Do take note that if you open the jaw too far, you'll have the webbing or whatever pop out and then you can't really close the mouth too well. The other side is out. So all you have to do is just make sure that it lines back up. And there you go, you pop it in. Now, as many of you do know, Ghidorah does have a pre-sculpted neck and it is in a specific position. So that is going to hinder the articulation just a little bit. So like for an example, Ghidorah, can he look straight up? Yes, but you have to follow the curve. Can he look straight down for all of the heads? Yes, he can. However, you do have to follow the curve. So you can get pretty much all of the normal articulation, right, out of this guy that you would expect. Hinting that you would expect, but you do have to accommodate for that curve. So we do have all of those nice ball joints that move in different directions. Everything is good there. No real issues. Nothing has popped off. Okay, we are all good to go. You're going to stay like that for the rest of this section. Okay, we're going to come back to the wings in a minute because those are very important. We do actually have an ab crunch. It is on a ball joint. It's pretty limited, but nevertheless, it gets the job done. So we can go back up about that far, down about that far, and that will help with Ghidorah looking straight up or looking straight down. Twisting and turning, yes, but we do have the hind wing section. And Ghidorah's wings are segmented, so that will help and hurt some parts, so that's cool. The hips, they are on ball joints, so we can move them around. He can kick about that far forward and back and can kick out to the sides about that much. The knees, I'm a little confused as to how they did the leg articulation here. So they are on hinges, so they move about that far forward and that far back, and they do feel like they are on ratchets. So I can pretty much get them to click into place and then back out, and then they do swivel. It seems like they plug in on ball joints, but I can't get them to really rock, so just be careful if you're going to try that. And then whatever this would be, that is on a hinge as well, and you can hear it clicks into place. The actual ankles are going to be on ball joints, so that's cool. We can move them around with no problems. The tail, like I said, they are, both of them, they are not attached in the box. You are going to have to use heat to pop them both in. They are labeled L and R. If you can't figure out what that's for, I don't know how you got the money to pay for this, so nevertheless, they do move just spectacularly fine, and I will go ahead and put my money where my mouth is. Oh, what's that? What? Oh, you want to see just... Oh, well, I can't because the wings will touch. Yeah. All right, so the wings. And this will pretty much round out the articulation section as well, but we'll talk about the accessories. So for the wings, Hiya did a rather good job, but they also didn't. Why? Well, because, as you can see, there's a whole bunch of articulation, and if you're familiar with the SH Monster Arts line, it's very similar to the SH Monster Arts Destroya, okay? So what they did here is they shingled the wings. I didn't think I'd ever use shingle as like a verb there, but hear me out. So each one of these little balls is actually a swivel and hinge combo. So we'll use this one up here as an example. So we do have a hinge here, so we can move in one direction, and then we can swivel around. Now here's where it gets a little bit confusing. I'm gonna have to zoom in, and just because of space reasons, I'm hoping this will come out clearly. All right, I see it on my preview, so it makes sense. So if you look at these two here, you can't see anything aside from the sculpted detail. On this one, you can see at the top of my fingernail, there's a little circle. That is basically where the hinge is going to be, and that can be your guiding point, because if we go ahead and we move this out of the way and we move this out of the way, we can see that this piece of the wing, let me back this out so you can actually see what I'm doing. You can see that this portion of the wing is able to move up and is able to move down. Okay, you see that? Okay, and then we get the rotation there. So it is able to move at the base on a swivel, and then it's also able, you're also able to turn the wing. So it moves here on a swivel and here on a swivel and here on a hinge. That is because they want to be able to get you to do walking poses with Ghidorah. Okay, so that engineering continues on down here to the base of the wing. So as you can see here, we can get that done. But that huge heavy wing can come back and can cause weight issues. Of course, it doesn't want to do that now, and will cause stuff to droop and flop and just collapse under its own weight. So that is definitely something to keep in mind. This whole section plugs into a ball joint here. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and show you wing walking poses in a second. So we do have all those segmented portions. We then have this section of the hind wing, okay? It does the exact same thing as up here, but it kind of sort of gets lost in the mix because this is just kind of dangling back here. It does have the same points of articulation, but when you turn Ghidorah around, you have the, see, you have the sculpt here, which does block the articulation a little bit. Now, you sort of saw it, and I pointed it out in the sculpt and paint section. With those points of articulation, the sculpt is pretty much flush against those joints, so you will have some scratching and scraping and some damage if you move it around too much, or you're not super duper like sniper precision perfect with moving everything around. So as you're meddling around with getting the wing walker poses, you're going to unfortunately have some mishaps, and you will get some scrapes and some scratches. So be prepared that you may unfortunately damage your King Ghidorah, which is not something that you want, but unfortunately it may be an inevitability. But I mean, c'est la vie, because it's something that you can do. So let's go ahead, and now that you saw how that's done, here are some reference poses, so this way you get an idea of basically what that's going to look like. Now, what the overall idea here for Ghidorah is going to be is essentially you're going to use each one of the shingles as a finger, if you will, or even as an extra foot. Because even in the promo pictures, if you're going to take a look at the ones that are officially on Hiya's website, or even the ones they showed on social media, those all have different degrees as to what the wing pieces look like. So you're going to have some that look very tightly compact together, and then others, which it seems like the actual shingle pieces, if you will, those are all separate compared to the main wing piece. Now, the big issue that I sort of hinted at but didn't really talk about too much is that it's very difficult to make sure that all of the swivels move correctly along with the hinge. So for the back hind wing piece, that is hard to move because you may have the swivel which plugs into the body. That one doesn't want to cooperate with turning around, and it can be frustrating. So basically the moral of the story is, if you don't get the wing walking poses to look all that great, then don't worry, you are not alone, my friend. Now, to summarize the articulation, I think it's pretty standard, and they did the best that they could with Ghidorah. You can get him into some fun poses, and you can get him to look really great battling with Godzilla or any of the other kaiju that you may have. The wing walking is okay. If you really are patient with it, you can get it just fine. I wanted to get the wing walking poses up quick, so yes, mine has a bit more damage than probably the average person. But as you can see, he can stand without any support stands, which is to be expected because the competition can do that as well. Now for accessories, we do actually have some of them. I'm not going to zoom in and show you up close and personal because they're just, plastic support stands, but we do have effectively a cradle for Ghidorah here, and this is very, very easy to use. You don't need this per se. However, I would recommend that if you're going to have Ghidorah up for a long period of time, that you do absolutely use this. Reason being is, you don't want Ghidorah to topple over anytime soon. So this is basically going to just be, let me put this one, a chest support system for him. And so you can do it like this. So that's going to go there. And then you have 2 wing support systems, which per the instructions, it seems to indicate that these are going to go here. Oh, see? Which this is pretty sloppy getting it done. I'm just kind of showing you what this sort of looks like real quick on the fly. So this way, in the event you do need some extra support, or you do need to make sure your Ghidorah is stable, maybe you live in an area where there's going to be earthquakes and so forth, maybe you want to make sure that your Ghidorah is going to be fall-proof. You do have that ability, and the support stands are fine. They get the job done. Nothing overly spectacular. I do like the fact that they do give you a chest cradle. That is great. That is something that the SH Monster Art should have came with instead of something that just cradles by the pelvis, but it is what it is. Energy beams would have been great. Maybe they'll do a repaint, but c'est la vie. If you need any other support stands or some effect parts, I got videos to help you out in that regard. And now we're going to go ahead and move on over to a size comparison where you can see Ghidorah. I still think he's a little too big myself. However, I think he blends in just fine as a giant, not golden dragon on your shelf. He's the main boss monster for Godzilla throughout history. And quite frankly, I think he retains that spot. So buy now, skip, or wait for a deal. Ghidorah is not without his flaws, which I don't believe there is such thing as a perfect figure, but quite frankly, I do think that this is a very, very strong contender for the best kaiju, titan, whatever that Hiya has put out, and will definitely be difficult to top. Unfortunately, again, we do have some scrapage issues, which I will admit, probably I did a bit more than the normal user would have because I did push this a bit, but nevertheless, it's a warning for you to be careful. The heads, it's a shame that there are some folks who were able to put in a request to get replacements. That indicates, however, they were aware of an issue and they didn't correct that in production. Nevertheless, if you're looking to get the Hiya King Ghidorah, it's a solid purchase, and considering this is the cheapest one on the market at retail, you can't go wrong. And if you're looking for a comparison to the SH Monster Arts, don't worry. If you're here at the day of upload, come on back tomorrow.